Yeah, I'm going to put some new battery cables on this El Camino because these have been in here a long time. You can actually see they were, I noticed recently that the rubber was cracking off of them. I put some tape over that. I said, time to change these puppies. Now these are the OEM style, which actually takes a side terminal, and I have them adapters to the post terminals. I like leaving these with the side terminal in case you got to get a side terminal battery sometime and you got the wrong cables. You can take both kinds, right? So what I like using is standard, pretty good components, and I'm going to be putting a new rotor in there. Actually put a good quality rotor because this is AGI and they kind of trash the rotors after a while. I clean them up, but AC Delco Professional, I like getting the good stuff. And I always get them from, this is not an advertisement, but I found out the best prices around are, one of the best prices around definitely is rockauto.com. They're fast. Then they give you a 5% discount after you order from them. You know, I'm just saying it because I personally found it to be the best deal. You get these little magnet things. I got them all over the side of the refrigerator, man. So anyway, I'm going to take these off and clean this up and put a little bit of dielectric grease on them. Now I like using these kind because these are like the OEM kind. You notice these ends are on here really solid. You can splice them, you can do stuff and put little adapter ends on them, but it's usually better to get these type because you know they're not going to corrode over here. Even though they shouldn't, they do, right? So let's change these puppies out, and we're going to do it the nitpicky right way. Well, note that, you know, this was corroded here. This is even pretty dirty over here on this end. You know, well, this is coming off anyway. But the bolt is corroded. It's got the star washers corroded. We're going to clean it up with the drill, and we're also going to clean up where it bolts in with the drill too. And we're going to put some electromotive grease on there to make sure it stays good contact. And a lot of times, reasons like this is why you don't get as good starting even when you put a good battery in it. Maybe it works okay, but it doesn't work as good as it should. And the way to really check it is with ohm meter. Like say for instance you put it like that, and you have a connection here. You know, it's got some serious resistance on it. Like, well, I got the ohm meter up pretty high, but it's not that great. Yeah, I'm like tugging on that cord a little bit, so you know that rust is created some resistance. So even though I got this big ass battery in there, you know, a lot of people ignore this type of stuff. What kind of grounds they got? Also, you want to check the ground straps to the back of the engine, and if you don't have ground straps on the engine, you want to do ground straps from the engine to the body, and it's not a bad idea to even put some extras. It really isn't a bad idea, even if they're not from the freaking factory. I found on some cars, sometimes, even especially the computerized cars, it could give you less problems. It could. You know, it's like an extra security thing. It's like having suspenders and belt at the same time. You know, you don't really need to have both, but one fails, you know, whatever. So you get what I'm talking about. So we're going to clean this up with this, and we're going to clean up the ends, and we're going to put that damn, it's a simple thing, but you know what? A lot of people avoid this nitpicky stuff. And the nitpicky stuff is what makes that big word work. Reliability. Stone cold reliability. You can have an old engine. You can be a little low compression. You can burn a little oil, leak a little oil. Actually, this engine I think is fairly good, but you know, you can have an older car. This little stuff is what makes your car reliable. The little stuff. Attention to detail. Don't just slap it together. Now I put a little dielectric grease on the ends. Cleaned them up real good. Cleaned up the battery terminals. Cleaned up down there. A little bit of truck bed lining on this too, just to really cover it up. It's a little overkill, but that'll keep the water out of it. Yeah, if you really want to watch with these ends too, I clamp these on here. What I do is I put a little bit of weather strip adhesive inside here so no moisture can get in there and corrode it. That's another thing I do. These aren't too bad. I know a lot of electricians hate these type of ends because they can get corroded, but if you put weather strip adhesive inside of here, in there, it'll keep the water out. Next thing you do, the positive cable, you want to disconnect it from over here, because if you're working on, you're taking it off the starter, your wrench can hit something and ground out the cable and cause a spark, so you always want to disconnect the positive up here. Stupid simple tip, but people forget to do it. You know, I saw this cable, it's cracked, and I says, I didn't even notice this down there because all the grease down there, it goes through this holder. Guess what? That was my slight leak. I had a slight parasitic draw. It would take a couple months and the battery would be dead, but it wouldn't do it in a couple weeks. But I guarantee you this was enough to do it right here. It wasn't this, there was still a piece of this on here, but all it would take is a little moisture to have a little bit go to this to here and get it grounded out very, very slightly. That was my parasitic draw. Actually, when I put this back in here, I'm going to put some Munster tape around that thing, so it, you know, just in case, you know, 10 years from now the cable cracks, it's not going to have a problem. Holy, so I solved two issues actually here with this. I didn't really think I had a problem yet, but I did. That was the problem why I was killing these batteries. Because I killed two batteries. They were old. They were about 6-7 years old, but they were still testing good on a load tester. But when I put them in this car, and I didn't keep them on a charger, it would start okay in about 2 weeks. It would still be fine. But in 2 months, it had a very slight parasitic draw, and it was this. I don't know where it was. I just couldn't figure out where it was, man. I didn't realize it was that right there. Well, I knew this needed to be changed really bad, because if you just move it, look at it does. Cracks. See that? But down there, what I did was I put some Munster tape around it. This stuff real wide, just in case, you know, a million years from now, in case it gets brittle or something. And I got the extra positive end on this thing. What I'll use, like it's one of these, you know, except it's a positive. I wrapped it up, keep it out of the way, but I will use that for the HHO later on. I'll probably put the HH unit down up in there, right in front of the radiator in the corner. Got some like nice place to mount it. And I could probably put the water reservoir right here and the bubbler, and you know, just pipe it in to this. So that'll be coming up in the future. I'm going to start using this thing more, because I'm just going to do this. And now I'm going to change this out, this little rotor. Made sure I got the best one, because HEI is kind of tough on rotors. I clean them up every once in a while. I used to do a lot of work on this car, a lot of nitpicky shit and big stuff, you know, pulling out the trans, pulling out the whole front end, the A-frames, the clutch, the axles, the differential, putting a posi in it, you name it. But I haven't done stuff in this car quite a number of years, and not that much. And now I'm going to start nitpicking the shit out of it again. Man, this cap don't look too bad, because I change them every once in a while, but you know, this one has a little bit of a different driver, so I like using this thing because it goes, you know. Pretty handy tool. And since this is like the earliest of the electronic ignitions that has these weights up in the top here, just like kind of like on the old stuff, except in the old points they'd be below the point plates. I want to make sure this is working, because that's your advance. There's no computer. That's actually centrifugal advance. You see, it's got these little springs right there. There's a spring right there. I'm going to make sure they're okay. They move. And I actually put a little light lubricant on them, not a lot. I mean, you don't have to douse it or nothing, but you want to do that to keep them so they don't rust up shut. So they don't, you got your advance. There's no computer on this car. Yeah, it's a good idea to spray a little electromotive cleaner on these connections before you put them back into stuff, and kind of like scrape them down with a little screwdriver before you push them back up in here. and this way you got to make sure they're connected, you know, or else I tell you, it's little shit that makes a big difference. That's what makes the reliability, attention to detail, and actually most of the time they're too much. Well, it's not the mechanic's fault, it's the owner of the garage's fault most of the time. That's why you're better off going to a guy that actually works for himself, because, not that I'm doing this shit, but I'm saying is, when they're under pressure, it's like, hey, get that car out of here, hurry up, you got so much time, you only got 15 minutes, and they don't do all this shit. That's why. Can't even blame the mechanic. You can blame the owner of the garage who's cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And these wires only go on one way. The way they got the connector, the right, that's the white, and that's the black. I just didn't realize I had it another way around, but it only goes on one way. But make sure they're clean, and you know, also check for your vacuum hoses and all that kind of crap, because all that little stuff makes a difference. Well, it did start up nice and quick, like it usually does, but I figured the reliability's up a little bit more. I'm going to fix the exhaust leak in that heat riser later, because I'm going to put on new Y pipe, new catalytic converter. But before I put on a catalytic converter, I want to make sure I have the HHO set up, because I'm running a demon carburetor and it will clog up a brand new catalytic converter probably fairly quick. But with the HHO, I'll probably pass emissions with flying colors, and that's one of the reasons I want to do that, and not have to deal with the 1978 emissions shit. That's a piece of crap, you know, it's junk. But I'll be passing it anyway and getting better mileage. So we're going to do the HHO before we put the fix that exhaust and stuff, and the catalytic converter. Next step after this is I'm going to be putting some seals in the rear seal in the transmission, the shift shaft seals, and a speedometer cable seal. No major leak, but we're going to seal it up really good.